We'll just move to our next session. I know this topic that we have heard about, but we don't know much about. So we have our expert in-house, who's Sunil, and he's going to talk about how chronic inflammation is going to be the root cause. And is it a root cause, first of all? And if it is, what can we do about it? Over to you, Sunil.
Thank you, Shailaja. What an amazing hosting. Awesome, Arun. Thank you for bringing the best out of Smita. Smita, your story is so beautiful, right? Keep inspiring. But I am 42, as Shailaja was mentioning, right? So I don't look like, so a lot of our coaches don't look that age as well, right? I've got a very interesting topic to share today. And it's one of the most important, according to me. If you understand this concept, you will lead a healthier life forever. Trust me, right? Just to give a background, me and my wife Shweta, we are the beneficiaries of this wonderful program from this community, and we owe everything for this community. Me and my wife, we were struggling to conceive a child even after marrying for 7 to 8 years. And we went through a transformation. I lost 12 kilos, my wife lost 10 kilos. And after leading a healthy life for 1 year with help of our coaches, we were able to conceive a child, and she's 3.5 years old now. And this is a blessing. And with our transformation, we are able to help and inspire more than 3,000 friends and family. And we became practitioners of what we follow. And we are the Swasthya coaches, right? So with that background, let me share my screen, right? And let's start the session today, right? All right. So what is inflammation, right? Is it a fancy word? You see celebrities talk about it. You see a lot of people talking about this a lot. I try to simplify this entire concept in next 15 minutes or so, right? So inflammation, if I have to give an analogy, it is like a rescue team. Whenever you're in trouble, right, you call the rescue team, right? So it is actually a rescue team in our body. Why? But why it is called a villain, right? It's an interesting thing to understand, right? Can I have all of your attention here for next couple of minutes? Because this analogy is very important for next slides that are coming up. If you're ready, can you chat? I mean, can you type, I'm ready or ready? Yeah, I need your attention. Your videos may be off, but I need your full attention, right, for this next couple of minutes. This analogy, if you understand, right, my topic is done. If you understand this analogy, right? So when there is a fire, right, out there, called fire extinguishers, they come as a rescue team and they put on the fire. And if there is an accident, we call an ambulance, we call the rescue team, and they fix that situation, right? And inflammation is this fire extinguisher, is that rescue team, right? They're trying to take things under control, right? So now, if it is friendly, why is inflammation, right, is causing havoc out there, right? So just imagine, right? You go through a normal route, right? It usually takes, let's say, to reach office half an hour, and smooth, right? So one day there is a huge accident, and the entire rescue team is blocking your pathway, and you're stuck, literally stuck until that road is cleared, right? So it takes more than 1 2 hours, right? Some of us blame the traffic police, right? Hey, every time this guy comes, there's always a traffic, right? Just imagine if there is an accident every single day happening, right? And you are fed up with the rescue team, right? Because you see them every single day. They are not able to handle things. They are not able to fasten things, right? So that becomes a bottleneck, right? Just imagine this road could be in your circulation paths in your own body, right? It could be the pathways for enzymes, right? It could be pathway for your hormones, right? But inflammation is trying to do its job. But what is the root cause? Who is putting that fire every single day? Who is creating that accident? Accidents happens only, that's why it's called accident, right? It can happen only probably 1 or 2 days out of 1 month or 1 year, right? So it doesn't happen daily. If it is happening daily, then something has to be fixed. The root cause is something else. You're thinking that rescue team is troubling me because they are blocking my pathway, right? So that is an analogy. If you understand this analogy, the next slides will be easier, right? I covered it in very layman term, right? So let's understand a little more in detail, right? So let's say you get an injury. It could be a prick of a nail. It could be So let's say you got you're cooking, you got burnt, right? So it goes through a process of healing, right? Our body has a natural healing process, right? So inflammation is part of that natural healing process. Even when we get infections, right? It could be bacterial, it could be viral. Our body has innate immunity which try to fight that infection. I mean, that inflammation is part of that immune system as well, right? It heals, right? So whenever you get a wound, it heals naturally. Maybe in few weeks, it's not there, right? That is a process, a natural process of an inflammation, right? It happens once. So just imagine you getting that external wound every single day. Can you imagine, right? You kind of getting burnt out every single day, right? So then your inflammation is coming and trying to kind of fix things for you. So I'm talking about external damage, right? If you draw the same analogy, how about the internal damage? You getting my point, right? That's the next thing, right? So now there is acute inflammation. So it happens once, body recovers. I mean, you get a wound, it heals, it heals. That's acute. I mean, it happens once, right? It could be allergic, environment, burns, or whatever. Chronic is something which is happening every day, every minute, every hour, right? So that is a chronic inflammation. That is what is creating a havoc, right? When trying to do a rescue, sometimes the collateral damage happens, right? If there's a house on fire, maybe there is no access. You might have to kind of break the door of your neighborhood to reach that place to put that fire down. So that's a collateral damage, right? Same way, inflammation also does a lot of collateral damage, a lot of internal damage happening in our body. So that is chronic inflammation that we are going to discuss. So what causes this chronic inflammation? If we were to put what caused that road accident, what caused that fire to trigger in the first place, that is a cause. The inflammation is not the cause. Inflammation is just the symptoms we are seeing. Inflammation is just blocking your pathway. But the root cause is that fire, is that prick, is that what is actually causing the chronic inflammation in our body, right? So there are many causes. So the majority of the cause comes under this oxidative stress, right? So it revolves around our environment, our lifestyle, our habits. I mean, if you're overweight, you're eating unhealthy food. So these are all contributing to a scenario called oxidative stress. So what is this oxidative stress? So if you look at our body has millions of cells. Everything that you touch and feel is a cell. There are millions of cells out there, right? Our cell goes through this oxidative stress, something called free radical damage, right? Eventually, that cell gets damaged and they replenish as well, right? So this is a natural phenomenon, right? So how frequent the damage is happening? So what is triggering the damage is under our control. It's more like rusting process. If I have to draw a layman analogy, oxidation is similar to rusting process. One day the pipe will burst, one day the pipe will collapse if it is iron pipe. Right? That's the internal damage that is happening in our body. Right? So I'm going to talk about a couple of things, right? So which is actually triggering this oxidative stress. One of the primary reason why people are leading an unhealthy life, one of the primary reason why inflammation is creating a havoc all over the place is our eating habits. So if you look at your grandparents, I mean, even some of our parents lived a healthier life. There was no concept of frequent eating. They used to have maximum 3 meals a day. And there was enough time restricted eating window of at least 12 to 14 hours. But if you look at now, this lifestyles have changed drastically. And there is breakfast, there is mid-noon snack, and there's lunch, and there's another snack in the evening, there's a dinner, probably there's a dessert after some time. You're not giving rest for the body, and you're kind of triggering a hormone called insulin quite frequently throughout the day, right? That's what it starts with. You start consuming junk food, start consuming more of refined carbohydrate, right? So if you understand, at the end of digestion, carbohydrate produces something called glucose molecule, and this is the worst thing in the body if it is present and if it is not metabolized, right? So that glucose has to be regulated in our body, and the way it does is there's an organ called pancreas which produces a hormone called insulin, which takes the glucose molecule into our cells, and that's what gives us energy. If this glucose is not getting into our cell, then it's a problem, There are a lot of factors that affects that mechanism. One of the factor is insulin resistance, because if you're spiking insulin too frequently, body develops a scenario called as insulin resistance. That means the key that is supposed to open the door of your cell, that is insulin, is not working now. So your glucose is accumulating outside of your cell and eventually builds up a lot of glucose in your bloodstream. And that is what eventually gets stored as glycogen and body fat. You will gain weight. And this is a root cause for your weight gain for majority of the people. Right? When you have an elevated glucose levels in your body, it is creating a havoc out there. The very first issue that people will experience with an elevated sugar level is type 2 diabetes. It's called a lifestyle disease. Because of your lifestyle, because of your eating habit, because of all the factors that we discussed so far, you got this lifestyle disease. Type 2 diabetes effectively means you have more sugar levels in your blood. And effectively, your insulin is not working. And you're not receiving the glucose is supposed to enter inside the cell, and the metabolism is not happening. And this glucose is creating a lot of havoc in the body. So how this glucose creates inflammation, right? We talked about a prick. We talked about a fire that is triggered. This glucose does that triggering. And it is that lighter, which puts the flame, right? So this is pancreas, right? So when you have elevated glucose levels in your blood, your pancreas goes through an inflammation process. It starts pricking. It starts literally putting the flame, start putting the fire to the pancreas. I'm talking in layman term. That's what actually happens, right? So it happens once, it's fine. So it heals. Just imagine you are bringing this glucose quite frequently all throughout your body. And you are putting that lighter on more frequently, like a child using that lighter, turning on, right? Imagine that scenario. Inflammation don't know how to behave. It just comes and try to rescue, does a lot of collateral damage. In the process of doing collateral damage, there's something called as beta cells that produced in the pancreas, which is responsible for your insulin production. And that gets damaged as well. There's literally a collateral damage. You lost beta cells. You lost the ability to produce insulin in the pancreas. And that is even worse. So type 2 can potentially become insulin dependent type 1. And if it is detected at the early ages, that's a typical scenario of genetics. I mean, there is inflammation, underlying problem with your genetics. But generally, when type 2 becomes type 1, it is purely a lifestyle. So you lost the production of insulin from pancreas itself. And as you know, right, if you can message, how many of you are aware if your parents or grandparents are having this high blood sugar levels, they have issues with every other organ in their body? Can you message? Maybe you can say, my grandmother had this issue. When there was a wound, it was very difficult to heal because this blood sugar levels create a process called glycation, which is literally rusting your body. It is creating a damage in every other organ, right? I mean, even liver, every other organ, it creates an havoc out there. So this is first thing that we have to kind of make sure that it is regulated, right? So coming to another major lifestyle issue is about hypertension, right? Nowadays, we see people who are fit, people who have all the parameters right with respect to their healthy, they're having a healthy eating habits, but they have a heart attack, right? So what is the root cause, right? Is your cholesterol the root cause? Not actually. There are a lot of case studies has been proven. Cholesterol is also part of your inflammation process. It's trying to rescue the damage that is creating. And so what is triggering this, right? If you understand the basic circulatory system, we have the heart, which acts as a pump, which pumps blood all across your arteries and veins and capillaries, right? So that's more like, if I have to draw an analogy, you have a house, right? You have independent house, you have a pump, and you have a plumbing system, you have an overhead tank, your pump acts as a heart and pumping, right? So all your water through that circulatory system, your plumbing system. I just want to give an analogy, right? So now, just imagine that whatever the plumbing that you're using, it's an iron pipes, right? So similar to your blood vessels, right? So this glucose, when it is elevated, when it is present in your blood stream, right? This glucose starts creating those small little holes in those arteries and veins, because it is that prick, it is that flame, right? That is how dangerous glucose is. So when your arteries and veins are getting damaged, right, it has to be recover. I mean, it has to be regenerated. That's how inflammation comes in. Inflammation comes in and it comes along with your cholesterol. It tries to kind of patch in those damages that glucose have been doing. And that is what eventually, just imagine the collateral damage. Imagine it is happening quite frequently. The plaque formation happens. You look at cholesterol and say cholesterol is responsible for this. You look at rescue man and say rescue team is responsible for that. But if you look at the underlying root cause, is what is damaging the arteries and vein. It is that glucose, it is that other components, it is that oxidative stress that is damaging at a cellular level. And cholesterol is trying to act as rescue. And in the path, it blocks as well. But it is not the cholesterol is the root cause. The root cause is your elevated sugar levels. The root cause could be your elevated homocysteine. Root cause could be something else, which comes under oxidative stress, your lifestyle, your stress levels, a lot of other factors, right? So can we detect? Can we detect the inflammation in our body? Can we fix it? Well, these are few various inflammatory blood markers, biomarkers that I would recommend. I mean, some of these are part of our generic blood tests as well, HbA1c, fasting insulin, right? So if you can get these tests done and say, my parameters are absolutely perfect in all these areas, then your body is not in a chronic inflammation. Maybe it's in the starting phase. Even though it's all green, maybe you have an inflammation in the body, but it's not reached that level. So that's why it's very important to kind of regulate these parameters and monitor this on a once in 6 months, once in a year. Am I having the right parameters in place? I don't have much time to get into more details, but if you can take a screenshot and get this test done to make sure that you don't have these biomarkers elevated. Right? How can we manage and prevent? Right? So you just have to do the reverse, right? So what are the bad lifestyles that you have? You have to fix that. And can you fix your air quality? I mean, can you avoid something not good? Right? Can we avoid toxins coming into our body? Can we lead a healthy lifestyle? Can my weight be an ideal BMI? Can I develop a healthy eating habits? Right? So that's how you can kind of overcome. Right? So we talk about food, right? We talk about macro and there is a micro. So micronutrients are powerful antioxidants. Those are the ones which act as fire extinguishers, which turns off that flame, which recovers when there is an inflammation as well. So powerful micronutrients like vitamin C, vitamin D, omega-3, vitamin A, so are most powerful ones which you can take to turn off these flames of inflammation, right? So if you're part of our program, so we recommend anti-inflammatory foods, right? And the entire design of our program is around this anti-inflammatory food. So the foods that you have to avoid, which is pro-inflammatory. You can take this screenshot. I don't have time to go in much detail, right? So you just have to avoid all the junk that you've been eating and move towards healthier eating, right? So we at Swasthya focus on prevention. It is not something that has happened. Diabetes can happen if you're overweight for 10, 15 kg, if you're leading the same lifestyle for next 6 months, next 1 year, next 5 years, you're prone to get these lifestyle diseases. Chronic inflammation will kick in. How can you prevent that happening? Right? That is the whole focus. We have 6 pillars. I mean, you're familiar with diet, nutrition, workout, everything that we recommend. The best part is the belongingness. This Hello Swasthya is the belongingness component. And I hope you learned something today. I hope you could understand what is inflammation in layman term. Every time you eat that food, you remember the fire. You remember that accident. That is the root cause. Right? It is actually creating a damage internally. That's all if you have to remember. Every time you consume a food, if you remember this incident, my job is done. That's all I have to share. Back to you, Sharon.